the town of Ebelstein. It was an ordinary place that happened to harbor a most extraordinary old man. For all the wrong reasons, this old coot was notorious, earning the nickname, the Lying Old Geezer, or at least that's how the locals preferred to refer to him. The only redeeming quality this man possessed was his ability to wield basic one-star magic, but unfortunately, even this minor accomplishment had gone straight to his head. He frequently dubbed himself the Great Mage of Ebelstein. Due to his eccentric personality, he was an easy target for local children. The geezer would overreact to an unreasonable degree, proving his temper was as short as his patience. However, unlike the other urchins, a boy named Derek didn't view the old man as entertainment. To him, the man was an opportunity, a gateway to learn the magic arts. It was remarkably easy for our boy to convince the man to tutor him, especially since the geezer was dying for an audience to listen to his tall tales. It was a fair trade, I suppose. The old man craved company, and the kid craved knowledge. It didn't take long for the boy to grasp mana circulation within the body, a feat that came as a massive shock to his mentor. Not stopping there, Derek even managed to channel that mana into the world for offensive use. That day, the old man recognized the raw potential hidden within the child, though he stubbornly refused to acknowledge it aloud. An entire year passed with Derek acting as a glorified errand boy for the old man. His hard work eventually bore fruit, and he officially became a one-star mage. Despite this success, the old man remained obsessed with noble bloodlines. He firmly believed that only those with prestigious surnames could reach the pinnacle of magic, while a commoner like our boy could only dream of such heights. He would often discourage Derek, claiming that while noble children could reach 3-star status at an early age, a lowborn would lose it and hit a wall before ever reaching 2 stars. However, the old man's discouraging words never served to deter our boy. Derek realized the man was simply projecting his own insecurities, the bitterness over everything he had failed to achieve in his own unremarkable life. Then came a day when the rain poured heavily, as if the sky itself were mourning. That was the day the unremarkable old man finally kicked the bucket. Derek found the man beaten to death, his body covered in gruesome injuries. The kid did what was necessary and gave the man a proper burial. A few days later, the cause of death became apparent. The crazy old geezer had tried to steal a 2-star spellbook from a warehouse. The crime baffled everyone. Why would an unambitious man risk his life for something so bold? Derek, however, remembered the old man's obsession with bloodlines. Unfortunately, possessing a noble bloodline was something Derek wasn't qualified for, at least not by this world's standards. But Derek didn't exactly belong to this world. As he mastered the basics of magic, a system registered his progress, allowing him to choose a magic school for enrollment. 4 years flew by, and the story introduced a new character, Katia Flameheart. She was the former mistress of the fallen house Flameheart, a viscounty. With her noble blood came innate talent for 3-star magic, making her a prime candidate for any mercenary group. During her stay in Ebelstein, she took on contracts from the Beldun Mercenary Corps, the same group Derek had joined. This gave the lad a golden opportunity to learn from a genuine 3-star mage. One evening in a tavern, Katia attempted to impart a vital life lesson. She acknowledged his hunger to accumulate power, but warned him not to let greed consume him in the process. The stoic boy took her words to heart, promising to remain grounded. Moving to the main agenda, she instructed him to close his eyes and manifest his mana into reality. As the boy followed her instructions, Katia was inwardly stunned by the impressive amount of innate mana he exhibited. It was rare for his age, and it seemed he was about to subvert her expectations even further. A commotion broke out, an explosive boom reverberated through the area. Everyone went on high alert, fearing an attack. Before Derek could even catch his breath, his mentor grabbed his hand and dragged him out of the establishment. Meanwhile, armed warriors searched outside but failed to find anything unusual, despite clearly hearing the explosion. Katia pulled Derek into a secluded back alley before addressing him with a serious tone. She needed him to understand that nobles are incredibly entitled regarding their privileges, magic being the greatest privilege exclusive to them. In this world, strength is seen as a divine blessing reserved for the elite. Among commoners, reaching 3 stars is almost unheard of, usually requiring a lifetime of devotion. Then she dropped the bombshell she dragged him here for. Derek had already reached 2-star status. The explosion everyone heard was actually a 2-star delusion-type spell called Auditory Hallucination that he had cast. Her earlier words were meant to make him realize he was blessed with innate talent, despite not being a noble. Right on cue, the system notification popped up, confirming he had achieved 2-star magic. Katia allowed Derek to travel with her, teaching him a variety of spells and the intricate ways of noble society. After a year of mentorship, the time to part ways finally arrived. Derek learned that the country of Elvester had appointed her as a private tutor. House Elvester was a family so powerful that even the capital's Grand Duke had to show them respect. For Katia, it was an offer she couldn't refuse. She finally left after gifting Derek a 2-star spellbook as a parting present. After spending another year studying and mastering 2 more spells by himself, Derek ventured out on a quest to become a 3-star mage. In the Belden's Tier Tavern, the man behind the counter is eager to deliver some good news to our boy. It turns out that House Duplain, a Grand Duchy, is showing interest in hiring a few talented individuals. This news comes as a massive surprise to Derek. It is rare for a family of such caliber to hire local mages. While our boy feels suspicious, the man at the counter, known as Jaden, is blinded by the prospect of a big payday. Even better, he argues that if they manage to satisfy the Duplain family with this first job, it will forge strong connections beneficial for their future growth. Derek, less than enthusiastic, is more interested in learning the specifics of the gig. The man happily claims the job is a piece of cake. All they have to do is take down a few monsters on the outskirts of the Grand Duke's territory. Of course, Derek is skeptical. It makes no sense for a family as powerful as the Duplains to request a mere mercenary corps to clear out monsters. Derek doesn't even weigh the risks. He simply turns to leave, having no desire to take the gig. Taking shady jobs goes against his code of conduct, so he naturally refuses. The contractor would love to hand the job to someone else, but the problem is that the Duplains specifically requested a mage, and Derek is the only one available in the corps right now. To gain some ground, the contractor tosses a gold coin to entice Derek. That shiny piece of gold eventually forces him to at least meet the clients he is supposed to work with. Upon seeing a kid, the noble dispatch refuses to have him around. Hiring a child who hasn't even had his coming-of-age ceremony makes no sense for a mercenary job. Seeing the client so dissatisfied, Jaden tries to convince the valuable patron that the kid is the real deal. However, the head isn't interested in further dialogue and turns to leave. At that moment, his mistress stops him, reminding him of their desperate circumstances. This eventually pushes the head to consider Derek. At the territory of the Grand Duchy of Duplain, Derek is seen slicing through goblins with finesse. These critters are nothing more than a minor inconvenience to him, and he wipes out the creatures in record time. Seeing the kid's potential, the noble dispatch is satisfied. However, the suspicious girl hiding under a hood is even more pleased than the leader. Back at Belden's Tier Tavern, we find one of the female corps members lashing out at Derek for becoming a noble's dog. As a fellow commoner, becoming a lapdog for the aristocracy is the last thing she wants. It doesn't matter how much Derek might be getting paid. To her, it isn't worth throwing away one's self-worth to crawl between a noble's legs. However, when the contractor reveals exactly how much money is involved, the greedy girl quickly kicks her pride out the window, claiming she wants a share even if she has to crawl between a noble's legs herself. A while later, things calm down when she passes out from the booze. This gives the man an opportunity to ask Derek about his day. To our boy, nothing noteworthy happened, just a few goblins culled. However, he strongly believes his clients are lying to them. The noble dispatch officer claimed he was looking for 3 things: youth, stamina, and socializing ability. Furthermore, the woman calling herself a scullery maid had hands far too clean for rough work. Before he can continue to lift the veil of deception, his contractor stops him. Being mercenaries, it isn't their job to dig too deep. Derek understands the implication. Jaden is right. This place is the wild, and in the wild, the only thing that matters is making a living. The rest is just an afterthought. The next day arrives, and we find ourselves back at the Grand Duchy's territory. Once again, our boy finishes wiping out the goblins lurking in the area, promising that none are left to haunt the place. The noble dispatch officer is glad to hear the news, as is Jaden, who is eager to settle the payment. So the ever-happy Jaden ends up earning 2 gold coins. However, our boy knows it isn't time to celebrate just yet. Right on cue, the supposed dispatch officer applauds the kid for his exceptional skills and offers a new request. If Derek grabs the gig, the Grand Duchy will compensate him with 15 gold coins, an astronomically huge amount for the likes of Jaden. It goes without saying that Derek takes the gig in a heartbeat. This job takes Jaden and our boy to the residence of the Grand Duchy of Duplain. While Jaden is busy admiring the grandeur of the place, the dispatch officer decides to formally introduce himself. He is actually Delon, the Grand Steward serving Grand Duke Duplain. Of course, he attaches a half-hearted apology for concealing his status. The woman accompanying him is Katerina, the Grand Duke's head maid. Jaden can't resist paying his respects now that he stands in the presence of such esteemed clientele. Meanwhile, Derek internalizes the situation. The fact that his suspicions were correct makes the situation even more suspicious. Finally, the girl in the hoodie steps forward. Removing the hood, she introduces herself as Iseline Eleanor Duplain, the eldest daughter of House Duplain, who desires to appoint Derek as the magic tutor for her younger sister, Diella. Inside the office, the head of the family receives news of the group's return. The one delivering this news frantically is the son of Duplain, Reg. The head dislikes his son's lack of manners and reminds him of his dignity. Despite the clear insistence, the loudmouth keeps his volume high. He is fed up with his sister Diella and want his father to teach her some manners instead. Reg's older brother, Valerian, implores him to lower his voice and let him finish the conversation he is having with their father. The bastard continues to overstep his boundaries, ranting about how Diella good for nothing only causes trouble. The big brother finally has enough and demands this loudmouth leave the office at once, but Reg protests that they should abandon Diella. Even if they lose her, they still have Aiseline, but his father calmly reminds him that it is not his place to decide that. Rhaeg then puts forward the information he got about monasteries through the Grand Steward. The monasteries are well monitored, and multiple nobles keep visiting. He suggests it is better for her to devote herself to God rather than survive like a burden. But when he speaks further, his father smashes his head on the table, as he had already warned him not to speak on that matter. Rhaeg's head bleeds, but he still urges them to make a decision sooner rather than later. Aiseline walks through the corridor with our boy, inquiring if he has heard about her younger sister. He affirms that he has, as he saw her in the Duplain family's registry. She nervously comments that her sister isn't well known. As they step inside, Rhaeg and Valerian are stepping out. When Valerian sees Aiseline, he briefly greets her and then bids her farewell, as Rhaeg is a little out of shape after the head injury. Meanwhile, our boy observes Rhaeg holding his head and a maid crying. Later, they sit with their father, and Aiseline introduces our boy as a magic tutor. However, her father doesn't seem interested, so they begin to leave. As they are leaving, His Grace asks our boy to stay. He is stunned to learn that the hero is only 16. Naturally, he wonders if he can handle magic. Our guy casually mentions that he can use some one-star magic. The Duke laughs, having seen straight through his lie. Instantly, our guy apologizes, but the Duke understands his position, as being overpowered isn't as easy as it seems. Still, the Duke believes that our boy isn't a suitable candidate for a tutor since he is very young as well. Our boy simply mentions that he is a mercenary. In the end, the Duke chooses to trust Aiseline's judgment and grants him permission to tutor his daughter. He dismisses our boy, but before the hero leaves, he asks for one thing. The Grand Duke grants him permission, allowing the tutor to reiterate his position as a mercenary, and stating the obvious condition of teaching Diela magic, as well as helping her enter higher society as a proper noble. For those reasons, Aiseline commissioned her. That's nice and all, but the Duke can't fathom why he's stating the obvious to begin with. To that, the boy highlights that he too has a personal request to make, one that stuns the Duke. Let's go and visit Diela and see what makes her such an angry chihuahua to begin with. Smashing a plate on the wall, Diela berates her maid despite the servant's apology. She doesn't spare a word of kindness for her inferior and trash talks the maid, threatening to smash the plate against her face next time. Let's cut to Aiseline's side of things, where Jaden is dying to know why the 16-year-old was picked among hundreds of magic tutors, especially when Derek is a commoner who won't be able to blend well with nobles. With a sorrowful expression, Aiseline explains how they've already tried using every other mage in the continent. All of them gave up in the end, leaving her to desperately pick someone fitting for the role. Despite Derek's background as a mercenary, the kid knows a bit about the behavior of the nobles and their way of the world. After all, the boy's master was once a fallen noble who taught the boy many tricks. Aiseline is glad to learn those things despite our boy's background as a mercenary. She has a small sliver of hope that he'll be able to tame Lady Diela. Jaden critiques her for Aiseline's inability to analyze people better, a remark that stuns her. The reality is, Derek is a kid who grew up on the streets, someone who worked even before a fitting age. Jaden strongly believes that the kid who survived all that harshness didn't do it with kindness alone. His words ignite Aiseline's confidence. Back to our boy, he's escorted to Diela's quarters through the head butler. There, Derek gently knocks and waits for an answer. With no response, he forces his way in, politely greeting his student. The new tutor introduces himself by name, while the young lady sitting in front asks that he come closer to her. Derek walks up to her, and right when he's in vulnerable distance, this demonic brat smiles and splashes his face with a burst of sewer water. Our nonchalant king doesn't even react, while she taunts him, berating him for being a sewer rat. At first she remembers him as the mercenary that the butler told her about, but in the same breath, she insults him as a disgusting rat. Diela stands up on her chair, because the midget obviously can't reach our boy, and then proceeds to pour down another bucket of sewer water on his head. Derek simply stands there, without uttering a single word, while she finds it inconvenient to have run out of water for her lowborn guest. Much to her disappointment, our boy is literally unaffected and simply stares her down. Desperate, Diela kicks him for even seeing eye to eye with her. Derek is now on the ground, and to teach him a lesson, she takes off her shoe, taunting him for his shitty smell, before throwing the shoe at him. Next, Diela sits back on her chair, adopting a condescending tone as she continues to bash him as a gutter rat. Side note, why is the artist flashing us with free feet pics? A moment of silence ensues, and just in the other room, the Grand Duke is busy peering a gaze out the window. He remembers the conversation that took place earlier, how the young boy intelligently pointed out Diela's desperate situation. No one could help her, so they had to use a commoner as a last resort. But Derek wanted to know how much authority he would have when it came to teaching the youngest child. You guys are probably confused, but it will all come clear in 1 second, because in the next moment, Diela's face is burning red. Derek bitch slaps her so hard that now she's the one on the ground. Their positions have been switched, as the ungrateful noble processes her new reality. But Derek's not done. This man wants more and orders her to get back on her feet again. 3 years ago, the protagonist asks his teacher what their reaction would be if she had to teach a stubborn student who took kindness for granted. Her answer is empathetic. As a teacher, she would try to understand where the student is coming from and still take them in. The answer doesn't satisfy him, as he thinks it is idealistic, and he pops another question. What would she do if she couldn't even do what she mentioned with that student? Once again, she explains that she would find a different way of teaching the student, since it is a teacher's duty to guide the student onto a better path. That makes the boy wonder what a different way of explaining could be. With a sharp gaze, she gives her final thought. She would imprint fear into the student. Coming back to the present, Lady Diella is on the floor with her cheek bruised, while the boy gives her a lesson on treating others with respect. Then, he orders her to get on her feet before he has to repeat himself. Of course, she gets up, but as she does, she slaps him out of anger. The protagonist doesn't hold back and slaps her once again, telling her that he won't make her say anything twice either, so she will have to listen to him. She scoffs, thinking she can get away with it, and screams for the Grand Steward, mocking the hero and his guts to lay hands on her twice. The steward, along with the maids, rushes inside, standing right in front of the hero. The steward instantly demands an explanation for his actions, and the boy pulls out the permission letter he got from His Grace, granting him full authority over Lady Diella's education. That means he can do whatever he wants in order to teach her. The steward reads the letter, and Lady Diella quietly stands in the corner. Later that night, Valerian angrily heads toward the boy's room and slams the door open, no matter how much Reg tries to stop him. He grabs him by the collar and is just about to hit him, but the hero reveals that he has received permission from their father. Reg intervenes, telling Valerian to calm down, since the hero is a guest brought by Azeline and his behavior could affect Azeline's position. Then Valerian orders the boy to follow him without Reg. Reg tries to reassure the hero that Valerian won't be too harsh on him, though he realizes that a beating was required for Diella to come back to her senses. Then the boy walks off with Valerian, leaving Reg wondering why Valerian would even be protecting Diella right now. Valerian takes the boy to Diella's old room in the main house, which has remained the same ever since. He shows him the drawings Diella used to make, drawings she would shyly show Valerian. However, she would never complete them. Instead, she only drew the parts she wanted to. Valerian then apologizes for his emotional outburst. The boy brushes it off and asks why he was brought to the room. Valerian explains that Diella wasn't always like this, but recently she began obsessing excessively over bloodlines. Eventually, she was kicked out of the main house and locked in the annex. He can't comprehend who turned Diella into this, and they have to somehow stop her from going to the monastery. If she is able to learn even 1-star magic, Valerian would be able to talk to his father and beg him to save his beloved Diella. Pulling out the books, the boy realizes that she hasn't given up on magic entirely, judging by the notes in the margins. He confirms with Valerian whether all the books are theory books from the School of Regulation. Valerian affirms this, as all nobles receive their education from that school. The boy shuts the book, assuring him that he can give it a try. Later, in Diella's room, she is in a deep sleep when she is waterboarded by the hero. She angrily screams at him, but he instantly grabs her, saying they have to go somewhere. She keeps screaming at him to let go of her, but no one intervenes. Outside the castle, he dumps her on the grass. With fury, she demands to know why he thinks he could teach her anything. He plainly replies that since she doesn't listen, she just needs to know that he's not here to teach her magic. He simply loves beating up stuck-up nobles. He already has no reason to like nobles, so why should he hold back from beating her up, which sounds like the perfect opportunity? He also adds that the tutor role is just an excuse to take out all his anger on her as a commoner. She clutches the ground, trying to threaten him by saying he won't be safe after doing something like this. He smiles, knowing she will be sent to a monastery soon, so nobody would believe her anyway. Even if something happens, he will just apologize with his life, since a commoner's life isn't worth much either. She starts sweating as he further adds that he could always just run away and be forgotten soon. It would be a favor to Duplain, as it would get rid of her. Diella instantly begins to panic, realizing she is going to die, so she makes a run for it. She plans to get rid of him in the forest, since she knows it well enough to escape back to safety and report him. He lights up a fireball, which surprises her, as a fireball is 2-star magic. He throws it at her, and she barely dodges it, rolling away on the grass. He looks for her, and when he sees her unharmed, he smiles, saying he clearly missed. Diella pedals into the forest as fast as she could, looking back and fearing another deadly strike. Unfortunately, her luck says psych bitch and makes her trip, knocking her down with a thud. While she collects herself in an effort to escape, a magical arrow comes her way. She watches it, dashing away just enough to not get hit by the arrows. The noble gazes at the arrow with fear in her eyes, while our boy praises her for being light on her feet. He praises her for possessing an incredible speed despite being caged inside the annex all day long. The highborn doesn't waste any time and starts running away again, while Derek resumes his chase. The big question lingering in Diella's head is how long she can outlast him, because at the rate they're going, it's only a matter of time until she gets pinned down. When she looks back again, This man is preparing another spell contacting the ground. Derek gazes at the scenery of the forest, recalling how it's the exact same image he saw in those paintings, implying that Diela actually ran here ever since she was a child. Before she could even simplify her feelings, she ended up collecting the mana from the wild and poured it onto the empty canvas. Derek is in the middle of his thoughts, when suddenly, this psycho brat jumps, screaming at him with a boulder between her palms. This is her one chance of knocking him down, but our boy isn't a weakling and casually unsheathes his sword, slicing the boulder right off her hands and knocking Diela down. The attack is unsuccessful, and now she's got nowhere to run. The mercenary glares at her down, praising her for her spirit. After all, it's no surprise that he would have absolutely caught her in the forest, so instead, Diela changed strategies and attempted to surprise attack him. Despite that little maneuver, she failed, and now she had nowhere to run. Diela pants breathlessly in defeat. The cold mercenary knows that she doesn't even have the strength left to escape, so to end this little chase, he demands her final words before he cuts her down. With death looming over her, Diela smiles. Even now, she refuses to apologize, refusing to beg before the likes of a lowborn like the 16-year-old standing over her. Intrigued, Derek curiously asks why she's obsessed with discriminating against others for her bloodline. Interestingly, the noble tells him that she wouldn't have anything to rely on if not for her nobility, as if she truly thinks of her as nothing special. Punching the ground, Diela starts chanting magic in frustration, tears streaming her eyes. She berates him for acting like she never even tried when it came to learning magic. Derek resumes his silence while she vents her feelings, talking about how all her efforts to learn magic have been useless. It doesn't matter if she picks painting either. She's terrible at everything she does. That's the reason Diela strongly believes that the only aspect of her life truly special to her is her bloodline. An important point of reflection arrives here. She doesn't know where she stands anymore. After hearing her out patiently, Derek pours his sword with mana. It's time for the Yap festival to end, and for him to deal the killing blow. The mercenary raises his sword and hastens to end the girl's life, bidding her farewell. His sword swings down with immense speed as Diela shuts her eyes, awaiting impending doom. But then nothing happens. She opens her eyes in hesitation. The sword has been stopped by shards of ice. The noble doesn't even process what happened just now. Diela has found herself covered in ice, stopping his sword from making impact. Confused, she stares at her own two hands, unable to believe that she was able to cast magic just now. Sheathing his sword, the mercenary draws his conclusion, praising Diela for her hard work with the test, even apologizing for going too far. She stares at him in pure shock, while he clarifies that even though this isn't magic but a manifestation of mana, she was still able to cast something. Right then, her emotions explode and she gushes out in tears, crying and wailing before him. The night is young, and after a while he shares a gentler conversation with the young noble. Derek explains that Diela's affiliation is from the School of the Wild, and though most nobles learn from the School of Regulations, the actual School of Magic is divided when it comes to understanding and mastery of it. Since she's from the School of the Wild, it's natural for her to face issues learning magic from the School of Regulations. To give a metaphorical example, it was like forcing her into clothes that were unsuitable for her body type. Astonished by his observation, Diela curiously asks how he came to know about her affiliation with the School of the Wild. Derek mentions the paintings, how she used mana through nature to paint. Furthermore, any mage born with an affiliation to the School of the Wild usually senses natural mana pretty early on. After wrapping up her ankle, Derek tells her to walk freely from here on since she'll be okay. The first step has been successful. He has helped her manifest mana, but the tutoring process requires a lot more than that. From tomorrow, she's going to be learning how to manifest mana naturally. After all his hard work, even the bratty princess thanks her new tutor for believing in her. The mercenary stays silent and ushers her to head back. As they're walking, he asks her about the artist behind the sunset painting, but apparently Diela doesn't remember either. He praises her wildly for creating a masterpiece, as the scene ends off with the night. The following morning, Diela wakes up, this time feeling a flow of mana within the palm of her hands. She tries to recreate what she did last night, but it fails. Shortly after, she knocks the door open and scares the crap out of her maid, who probably thinks this 4-foot midget is about to beat her ass. Anyway, the bucket falls and water splashes on Diela's dress, inviting the look of fear from the maid. This woman definitely thinks she's about to die, and though Diela gives her a death stare, she doesn't do anything. She simply walks away, reminding the maid to watch her step, which is genuinely a trippy experience to this maid because this is the same woman who hit her with a Mike Tyson combo for the slightest reason. Even the other maids came around to check on her, stunned to wonder what on earth the new tutor could have done to this girl. As for our boy, bro's having his beauty sleep when suddenly he hears his door banging and Diela shouting his name. He opens up, finding the little lady who demands him to teach her how to manifest mana. She even gets scolded by the butler for lacking manners, but the moment this old dude hears that she manifested mana, he's at a loss for words. Diela wants an immediate lesson, but our boy isn't a pushover and tells her to come back in the afternoon. It pisses the little demon off a lot, to the point she starts shouting and screaming at him. But Derek? Bro is a princess who resumes his sleep like nothing even happened. News of Diela's recent behavior starts spreading out inside the house. The maids discuss how she hasn't broken a single plate or hit someone, making them wonder if the tutor has helped her manifest magic at last. Walking by, Reg overhears their conversation and stops to ask for details. Cutting from there, we arrive inside the main quarters of his father. Valerian reveals that Diela actually learned magical manifestation, something he confirmed through the head butler and other servants. It genuinely brings him relief to see some progress, but Reg is a little bent and still doesn't credit her for her progress. Valerian adopts a meaner tone with him, scolding him for critiquing his sister despite that she made good progress. Reg follows up with his logical and cold reading of the situation, critiquing Diela's past behavior. He thinks that a tiny result shouldn't sweep their feet, and it wouldn't even be enough to ward off the idea of sending her to the monastery. Speaking of the young lady herself, Diela is currently pouting in defeat, and her teacher has no clue why. She clarifies that she's not sad, but angry, though Derek believes it doesn't change a damn thing whether she feels one emotion or the other. Behaving like a brat again, she repeats herself, clarifying that she's angry. Derek emphasizes that they can't do anything and jump to a new level. The brat turns around, clarifying one more time that she's angry, behaving like a total child. Derek coldly glares at her, forcing her to look away afraid, accepting the idea of her pouting. Hilariously, our boy doesn't even know why she suddenly admitted that. He sits down to discuss the issues with her current sage of manifestation magic, especially when it comes to the risk of it backfiring. The mercenary emphasizes the idea of resting adequately just as much as learning fast, prioritizing her study session. Acting bratty again, she calls him the stuffy magic teacher and playfully mocks him. Our boy gets tripped up by the rage bait and reminds her of his other side, how he could easily teach her like he did in that forest. Refusing to go through that pain, Diela agrees to follow along. Back to their lesson, Derek intends to help her manifest magic so that she can eventually tap into 1-star magic level. The School of the Wild has no system of its own, making it the perfect fit for self-studying, as it prioritizes freedom. Derek strongly believes that the little noble's temperament fits the School of the Wild, though she's confused by his words. To simplify, he tells her how her free-spirited nature goes hand in hand with the School of the Wild. Secondly, she was also born with the noble blood of Duplain, giving her a pool of talent. Hearing that praise, the girl actually blushes for being called special. Derek assures her that the ice wall she casted the other day is a big tell that she's overflowing with magical talent. Diela gets carried away and wants to be treated like a genius, but our boy reminds her that she isn't all that yet, pissing her off. Watching them study, Reg is supremely ticked off for some reason, showing that he has some kind of hatred for his sister's progress. The very next day, Diela barges in our boy's room, excitedly revealing her progress in manifesting magic. She tries her hardest to get his attention even the day after that. More days pass by as Diela's understanding of magic continues to prosper, while her tutor remains a nonchalant Sigma lone wolf nerd who just wants to read his book. Diela taunts him for slacking off and reading spellbooks for free without giving her enough time, and to piss her off, Bro even agrees with her understanding of the situation. The bratty young lady drags him to show her further development in manifestation magic. In the next scene, Valerian stands alone, expecting a visitor. The door opens and it's Derek, who he's been meaning to have a conversation with. With both of them sat down, the big brother curiously asks about Diela's progress, to which the young tutor explains how she's developing rapidly, even though 1-star magic will take a while. Valerian hears this and reveals how their mother is expected to return next week, and he wanted to warn him about her temperament as that woman isn't open-minded. Nobles in general really despise the idea of commoners ascending to higher positions. Of course, Valerian understands that the young mercenary already knows these things, to which Derek wonders if that was the only reason why he called. Maintaining silence with a bit of hesitation, Valerian gets up, explaining how he's supposed to be the next head of the family, a position that requires total embracing of the estate and its members. Sincerity is important with every member, but right now, Valerian can't seem to touch someone's heart, and though he wants everyone's hearts and desires to be the same, reality is quite different. Derek is fed up with this confusing confession and asks him to clarify. Drawing to a close, Valerian turns around with sadness, revealing how the little sister won't play with him. It's at this moment our boy knew he was wasting his time. Valerian starts talking about how much they used to play together when Diela was smaller, and it kills him that she's so distant now. The big brother urges Derek for a way, a chance to recreate that same version of Diela again. The young mercenary doesn't know why he's being asked such questions, but in truth, he's the only one that the young lady actually bothers to listen to. To pull off another layer of sibling shenanigans, Valerian even showcases a doll he made in the image of his little sister, and I kid you not, this might be the most chopped-looking fucked-up doll I've ever seen. Our boy just looks at this dude with the most, "Are you for real, bitch?" expression ever, questioning if this dude is trying to curse his sister at this point. Next week hits the timeline, and the mother has arrived. This woman is genuinely intrigued by the young man who is a magic teacher capable of helping their daughter. Muriella introduces herself graciously, and offers the young boy a proper gift from the Duplain estate. Derek cuts the bullshit and straight up tells her he's not part of any house, and in fact he's just a simple commoner. That little revelation nearly gives this woman a heart attack. Let's go back a week earlier to catch up to this first. Lady Aisling expressed her deep gratitude for selecting a competent tutor like Derek. As the older sister, she wanted to stick by Dila's side, but she personally has a lot of responsibility to manage in Ebelstein, so the role of taking care of her sister is delegated to him instead. Derek understands those responsibilities, while Jaden thinks he should lighten up a bit and give a more enthusiastic answer. Anyway, both of them wrapped up their meeting with him and hoped Derek would finish up quickly so he could return to Ebelstein. The carriage left and right then. Aisling suddenly remembered something important. Her mother was supposed to return home next week, and she totally forgot to prepare him for her reaction. Jaden began wondering if it was really that important, considering it's just a return and nothing else. But deep down, Aisling had every right to be worried. The thing with Muriella is that she's the literal god of anger. In fact, the god of anger is presently storming to her husband's quarters, roaring at him for selecting a commoner as Diela's teacher. The man mogs her with his calmness, urging her to speak in a lower tone. His wife shouts at him for Diela's sensitive situation and how she's their most beloved youngest daughter. I'm starting to think bro really hates his life, because how on earth did he have 4 babies with this woman? Anyway, he confirms his own distaste for commoners, but at this point, they've got no other options. Every other teacher gave up on teaching her, but Muriella can't believe that a commoner was their only last resort, a mercenary of all things. Her husband emphasizes the importance of good teaching, and how Derek was personally recommended by Aisling. However, Muriella is unsatisfied. She's got a criteria of holding a certain standard, and suddenly recalls having Flam, Diela's uncle, and her father's brother. He could potentially take the role of teaching her instead of the new kid, but this idea is genuinely ridiculous because Flam manages an entire territory, and he'd have to leave those responsibilities just to teach the kid. Ebelstein will collapse if they make hasty decisions like that, but Muriella is more concerned about perception, criticizing how social circles matter equally as much, even when it comes to teaching. She doesn't sit right with the idea of letting a commoner with no family background go around teaching their daughter, as it will make a mockery of her in high society. At this moment, Valerian barges in, interrupting and assuring his mother that there's no need to start an argument. However, Muriella is a woman of her own ideals, and doesn't budge at all. One last person joins the conversation, believing the only solution is to test the commoner mage's skills, to judge if he's the right fit for Diela. This person is Muriella's saving grace, Reg, someone who hates Diela and is disliked by Valerian. Now Reg highlights how commoners taking important positions shouldn't be celebrated, so it's necessary to have the right qualities at least. Taking on the role personally, Reg urges his father to allow him to test Derek in a magical spar. But that's enough ranting for the patriarch, who assures his son that the mercenary is undoubtedly a powerful mage. Cornered, Reg suggests testing Diela instead. This time, he wants to see how well the mercenary has been teaching her. Results matter after all, so Reg wants to face her in combat to see if she's made any progress. Now this suggestion doesn't receive a rejection, and we're led to believe that Reg walks away victorious in his argument. Valerian chases after him, scolding his younger brother for his ridiculous ideas. Again, Reg doesn't believe in Diela's change of heart, strongly pinning her against her past sins. Valerian reminds this idiot that the girl is still their own sister, so they can't just ignore her. For some reason, Reg takes offense and starts shouting, emphasizing how their own bloodline is the reason their house is falling apart. If someone bashful like her goes in higher circles, she'll doom them all. Valerian can't believe that this harshness is how he truly feels, and so Reg walks away thinking he's right, believing that the only way to deal with their destructive little sister is to keep her sealed shut. In the next scene, we're back to Diela and Derek's perspective. She slams his door open early in the morning, inviting him to ask what happened. A scroll pops up on his book, and while he's opening it up, the bratty princess summarizes that if she loses the duel, Bro's gonna lose his fancy new job. The mercenary has already heard of this duel, and understands that Reg is a 1-star mage, so the chances of victory here are extremely slim. Diela shouts at him again, reminding this dumbass that he's about to lose his job if he doesn't do something about the upcoming match. Derek reminds her that it's his passing job as a mercenary to get hired, and then take his payment before moving on to the next. And so far, he's been paid plenty, so there's nothing holding him from actually worrying about the duel. The worry comes from Diela, who appears sad with how unbothered he is. A week flashes by and we arrive at the official duel grounds of the Duplain family. All important noble figures and their assistants are waking up to the main event, where the mercenary and tutor, Derek, welcomes them properly. From one glance, the head of the estate is stunned by how calm Derek appears, making him wonder if he's that confident in Diela's progress. The boy's attitude impresses the patriarch quite a bit, which is why he strongly believes that they shouldn't get rid of the mercenary yet. Walking from one side comes the kid with little sister issues. Reg looks majestic with his outfit. He swears by his conviction to break Diela once and for all, making sure that she is punished for all she's done in the past. From the other side, the little sister with anger issues steps forth. She remembers her conversation from back then, where Derek openly told her that her magical progression is evolving from this stage. This meant that one-star magic usage was right around the corner for her, simply because of her natural talent of possessing the Duplain family blood. At first, she didn't know why he would bring that up so suddenly, but there's a reason for that. Derek reminds her of her affiliation with the School of the Wild, a school that focuses entirely on self-studying and finding a unique process, instead of passing things down. Tears streaming her eyes, she shouted at him for saying such bleak and pathetic things. Finally came the confession. The same noble who treated him like dog shit at first now begged him to remain his teacher. She wanted to keep learning magic from him, refusing the idea of accepting another master. Hearing that, Derek turned around, emphasizing that he doesn't know a single rule for magic spars, especially when he had never done one with nobles. However, he could definitely teach her proper fighting skills and how to win her upcoming battle. So then came the question, did she really want to win? At that point, Diela began to remember those same judging voices, the ones that berated her and made fun of her as a child for being unable to learn magic. Her mere existence brought shame to her family because everyone treated her like a waste of noble blood. All of them praised Aisling and the Grand Duke's other children, believing it's better not to have children than to have a useless child. Side note, does this remind anyone of the recent Jujutsu Kaisen episode with Maki's evolution? Fueled by the rage to prove all her haters wrong, Diela agreed with Derek's suggestion and desired victory. And now came the moment of truth as she stepped onto the arena, no longer under the guise of being Reg's younger sister, or even the youngest child of House Duplain. Instead, she stood at her own foot, representing herself as the student of a mercenary and a mage.